So a few years ago, Google did something crazy. They fired 12 of their top executives, including their head of search and their head of ads. And it just wasn't because they were underperforming. It was because they weren't behaving in a way that was consistent with Google's values. And this goes back to the very beginning, because one of the craziest things about Google is how much emphasis they place on hiring the right people and then giving them tons of responsibility. When Sergey Brin and Larry Page founded Google, they famously said that their most important product wasn't Google's search, it was Google's culture. And they wanted to hire people who were not only smart and talented, but also shared their values. So in the early 2000s, they came up with what's now famously known as the Googliness test, which was basically a series of questions designed to figure out if someone was a good cultural fit. Like if you were dropped on a deserted island with 2 coworkers from your past and a bunch of tools, what would you do? Or how would you deal with the loss of your best friend? Now, obviously those are terrible interview questions and Google doesn't ask them anymore. But at the time they asked them because they wanted to build a company of good, smart people who were also nice and empathetic. And so they brought this philosophy into their management training too. In 2003, Google rolled out something called Google University, which taught managers how to manage software engineers. And one of the biggest things that they taught was that micromanaging was never the answer, because Google believed that they hired such competent people that all they really needed was autonomy and a clear vision. So for example, when Larry Page returned to Google as CEO in 2011, he didn't even have an office. He wanted his employees to know that he trusted them and that he was there to help guide the company, not to tell them exactly what to do. But then, in 2014, something interesting happened. Google decided that they wanted to get into the business of making cardboard VR headsets. And so they created a new division called Google Cardboard. And the head of this division was this guy named Clay Baver, who was generally considered to be a really bad manager. Clay had previously worked at another tech company called Wild9, which was known for having a super toxic work environment. And unfortunately, Clay seemed to bring that same attitude to Google. Employees complained that he was constantly insulting and demeaning, and in one memorable case, he threw a tantrum and started screaming at his team after they accidentally posted a video a few minutes early. And because he was running this brand new division, Clay had a lot of power. So naturally employees were pretty scared to do anything that might upset him. But some people tried anyway. Like this one employee who sent in a mail to her manager explaining that she was getting constant migraines, presumably from stress. She still got fired. Now, normally we wouldn't even cover a story like this because it's just one of those things that happens at companies all the time. Bad manager makes life miserable for everyone. But this story has a twist because while Clay was a terrible manager, he was also a terrible executive, which meant that eventually he lost the trust of upper management. And in 2016, Sundar Pichai, who was Google's new CEO, fired Clay and 11 other executives who exhibited similar behavior, even though they weren't necessarily underperforming. Sundar told the employees that while these managers were high performers, they just didn't align with Google's values, and by firing them, he proved once and for all that management matters. Because even if you hire the smartest, most talented people in the world, if you put them under terrible managers, everything will fall apart. But when you pair talented people with good managers, amazing things can happen. Take Sundar Pichai, for example. He has been CEO of Google since 2015, and he is widely credited with maintaining Google's strong company culture while also growing the company from 50,000 employees to over 150,000 employees. Now it's hard to say what Google would have been like if they never fired Clay Baver, but it's very likely that their culture wouldn't have remained as strong as it was. Because when you fire 12 executives who don't live by the company's values, that sends a message to the entire company. I guess that's why when he took over as CEO, Sundar made it his personal mission to hire more managers who were not just smart, but also good, empathetic people. He reportedly spent millions of dollars building out Google's manager training program, and he personally reviews every director candidate that is hired at Google. And so far it seems to be working. Google is still widely known for having one of the best corporate cultures in the world, even as they've grown to become one of the largest companies in the world. This is the host with business. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.